Brothers, there is a power sleeping inside you, ancient, primal, and raw. Not found in books, not gained in gyms, and certainly not purchased with money. It's a power that every great man once knew, but the modern world has made us forget. This is the power of semen retention. And whether you realize it or not, she can feel it. Yes, the woman across the room, the one who hasn't even heard you speak, she senses something different. A quiet intensity, a magnetic field that speaks louder than words. It's the difference between a man who leaks his essence and a man who contains it. You see, when you hold your seed, you're not just holding back fluid. You're holding power, your life force, your will, your drive. You're holding the very energy that creates life. And when that energy isn't wasted, it doesn't disappear. It transforms into clarity, into confidence, into a fire behind your eyes that she can feel in her soul. This isn't about abstinence. It's about transmutation. It's the act of turning base instinct into higher purpose. That tension you feel, that urge, it's not a curse, it's fuel. The same energy that creates lust can be forged into strength, vision, and discipline. But make no mistake, retention is a war. Not against women, but against the weaker version of yourself. The one who trades power for momentary pleasure. The one who numbs his spirit with pixels, fantasies, and short highs that leave you emptier than before. Retention forces you to confront that shadow, to face the hunger, the chaos inside, and to rise above it. That's where true masculinity begins. In the battle, in the fire, in the restraint that forges kings. And when you walk that path, everything changes. Your voice deepens, your spine straightens. Your focus sharpens. You no longer seek validation. You radiate worth because you are full. And women, in their deep knowing, feel it. So the next time she looks at you, know that she isn't just seeing a man. She's sensing your essence. She's reading your energy. And if you've retained it, harnessed it, mastered it, she will feel a power she can't explain. The world tells you to release. I'm telling you to rise. Discover the power you've always had. Retain it. Transmute it. Become the man you were meant to be. Thank you. In the modern world, the word energy is often tossed around casually. People speak of energy in rooms, in relationships, or in moods, but rarely do we reflect deeply on what this energy actually is, or where it originates within us. At the most fundamental level, the energy that animates a man, that drives him toward ambition, that fuels his creativity, and that gives rise to his very sense of purpose. It originates in what can only be called his vital essence. This essence is not just metaphorical. It is physiological, emotional, and psychological. It is stored, carried, and symbolized most directly in a man's sexual energy, specifically in the retention of his seminal fluid. But to reduce this only to a physical act of abstaining from ejaculation is to miss the deeper reality. This practice is not merely about what is withheld, it is about what is built. Inside every man is a storehouse of potential, and for most, it leaks away unnoticed. When a man expels his essence frequently and mindlessly, through indulgence, distraction, or addiction, he is in truth draining the very wellspring of his inner power. The modern world teaches men to seek release at every opportunity under the guise of freedom and pleasure. Freedom and pleasure. But what is lost in the process is profound. The concentration of life force that could be alchemized into something far greater than momentary satisfaction. That force is subtle, yet palpable. Ancient traditions knew this well. They saw semen not as a mere reproductive fluid, but as a condensed form of life energy, the essence of will, fire, and transformation. It was to be guarded, cultivated, and elevated through discipline and self-awareness. While science may not always speak this language, anyone who has practiced retention for any length of time will testify to the difference. Not just in the body, but in the psyche. What begins to change is your sense of self. You start to feel more grounded, not easily swayed by petty thoughts or external noise. Your eyes gain a different kind of clarity. Your walk becomes steadier, slower, more deliberate. Even your silence becomes louder. This is not about arrogance. This is about alignment, when the internal chaos settles and a new coherence begins to shape your identity. The energy that is conserved through retention doesn't just sit idle. It rises. It seeks expression. But it no longer demands release through the lower centers of instinct and impulse. Instead, it moves upward, into the mind, into the spirit, into vision, into purpose. This is not mystical rhetoric. It is an internal shift that men feel when they stop feeding the hunger and start containing it. The idea here is transformation, not repression. You are not suppressing your sexual energy. You are transmuting it. That difference is critical. Suppression leads to frustration, anger, and even self-destruction. Transmutation leads to creativity, drive, and influence. The raw energy remains the same, but its direction is altered. It no longer controls you. You harness it. At a psychological level, this is the reintegration of primal energy into conscious will. It is the decision to stop living passively, governed by unconscious desires, and to begin living actively, as a man who decides how his energy is spent. This shift from compulsion to choice is where power begins. It is the moment where a man begins to reclaim himself, and others feel it. The energy you carry, especially when rooted in retention, is not visible, but it is perceived. Not in the way of flashy displays or exaggerated confidence, but in the way that animals feel strength without explanation. It radiates, it commands, it settles. This is not dominance through force, but influence through presence. A man who retains his essence does not need to prove his power. It is evident in his restraint. Even your thoughts begin to feel different, clearer, sharper, less scattered, because you're no longer running from discomfort. You're holding it. You're growing capacity, and that internal capacity to feel energy rise without fleeing from it becomes the seed of mastery. It is the same energy that fuels legends, not because it is rare, but because few men learn to contain it. The essence of this practice is therefore not denial, it is cultivation. It is learning to hold power instead of leaking it. It is recognizing that your seed is more than biology. It is symbolic of your inner fire. And the man who guards his fire, who tends to it, who lets it rise instead of extinguishing it in cheap pleasure, that man becomes something else. Something rarer, something sovereign. There is a language that speaks louder than words, more deeply than action, and more precisely than logic. It is a language of energy, of subtle vibrations, of presence, of unconscious cues that ripple into every interaction we have, especially with women. It is in this energetic realm that the magnetic masculine aura is formed, shaped, and projected, and few forces influence it more powerfully than the practice of semen retention. You don't need to announce your strength. In fact, the more you try to prove it, the more it betrays its absence. True power is not broadcast through volume. It is transmitted through stillness, through calm, through a certain density in your being that others, especially women, instinctively recognize. And when you practice retention, that density increases. Women are not responding only to your words, your looks, or your material success. Those things have their place, but they are surface level. What a woman truly responds to, often unconsciously, is the signal beneath all that. The energetic signature of who you are. And that signature changes dramatically when you stop leaking your life force. When you retain, your energy gathers, it condenses, it crystallizes. You begin to carry yourself with a kind of quiet authority. Your eyes change, not in color but in depth. You're no longer projecting outward, desperately seeking validation or stimulation. Your gaze becomes centered, focused, and contained. That containment is magnetic. It tells others, this man is not easily moved. And to the feminine, that quality is deeply attractive, not because it is performative, but because it is true. Energy always seeks polarity. Masculine energy, when fully embodied, naturally attracts the feminine. But this isn't about becoming some caricature of alpha. That's surface acting. True polarity happens when a man is integrated, when his energy is self-directed, when he no longer chases but radiates. Retention fuels this polarity by grounding you in your body, your mission, your awareness. It removes the scattered, grasping energy that most men unconsciously exude when they're ruled by their desires. The man who retains exudes a different frequency. He is not reacting. He is not reacting. He is not hunting. He is simply being, and in that being is a rootedness that others feel. Women sense this with unnerving precision. The feminine is intuitive by nature, attuned to nuance, tone, posture, eye contact, and the space between words. You cannot fake presence around a woman. She may not consciously know what you've done differently, but she will feel it. She'll feel the integrity of your energy. Presence is the most powerful currency a man can carry, and presence is amplified by retention. When you're not constantly pulled by inner cravings, your awareness becomes sharp. You start to notice more, the subtle gestures, the silences, the shifts in atmosphere. This attunement allows you to engage with the world and with women from a place of relaxed control rather than anxious performance. You're no longer seeking something from the interaction, you're simply in it. Calm, alert, sovereign. Your voice changes too. There is more weight in your tone, more resonance, not because you're forcing it, but because energy retained within manifests as depth. Even your breathing slows. Your body moves differently, slower, more deliberate, less wasteful. These micro-expressions accumulate into an impression that can't be faked. It's the sense that this man doesn't need anything, and paradoxically, that's what draws others toward him. This aura is not built in a day. It's forged in the quiet moments of discipline. It's born from the tension you don't escape, from the hunger you choose to sit with rather than satisfy. That restraint doesn't make you weaker, it strengthens the charge you carry. You begin to hum with potential, and people feel that hum. They don't know what it is, they just know that something about you is different. A retained man's aura carries memory, the memory of battles fought within himself, and those battles leave a mark. Not a scar of damage, but a kind of gravitational field that others orbit. It is subtle, but it is real. It lives in the way you enter a room, in the way you listen, in the way you say no without tension. This is the aura of a man who has chosen not to spill his essence for the sake of comfort, but to contain it for the sake of becoming something greater. The feminine recognizes this instinctively, not because she has a checklist, but because her body and subconscious are wired to detect energy. If you retain long enough, you won't need to say anything. You won't need to posture. The charge you carry will do the talking for you. Desire, in its rawest form, is neither good nor evil. It simply is. It arises from the depths of the psyche, a primal force that wants to move, to possess, to merge, to dominate, to release. For most men, this desire finds its primary expression through sexuality. It compels action, drives attention, and demands gratification. But few realize that this same desire, when redirected rather than indulged, can become the fuel behind purpose, vision, and personal transformation. At the root of semen retention lies this secret. The desire you feel is not something to be eradicated, but something to be refined. It is not your enemy. It is your raw material. And just as a blacksmith does not discard fire but shapes it to forge weapons or tools, a man on the path learns to take the heat of his sexual urge and use it to sculpt himself. The idea here is not suppression. Suppression pushes desire into the unconscious, where it festers, distorts, and returns in unhealthy forms, addictions, obsessions, outbursts. Transmutation is different. It is conscious. It's the act of sitting with the hunger and redirecting its energy into action, into building, into becoming. Every great man in history has learned this alchemy, whether he knew it or not. The artist who works through the night, the warrior who channels his aggression into discipline, the visionary who builds empires from nothing. All of them have in some form taken raw instinct and transmuted it into higher expression. Sexual energy is one of the most potent forms of this raw instinct. It is life-creating. Think about that. It holds the power to create another human being. And yet most men expend this energy mindlessly, chasing momentary pleasure, wasting the very force that could give their life direction. Retention interrupts that cycle. It doesn't kill the desire. It holds it, contains it, turns it inward. The journey of semen retention is not merely about physical abstinence. It is, at its core, a confrontation with the self, particularly with the parts of the self that most men try to ignore, suppress, or deny. In choosing to retain, you are not just saying no to pleasure. You are saying yes to a deeper battle. A battle with the internal forces that have ruled you in the dark. Your cravings, your compulsions, your fears, your fantasies. What you meet in that darkness is known as the shadow. The shadow is everything within you that you refuse to see. It holds your shame, your rage, your guilt, your hidden lust, your insecurities, all the emotions and instincts that society told you are bad, are too much, or unacceptable. Most men never confront their shadow because it's uncomfortable. It challenges the ego's image of being a good, in control, or a disciplined. But the shadow doesn't disappear just because it's ignored. It grows. It acts out unconsciously. And for many men, it rules their sexual behavior from behind the scenes. Every time you reach for a release, not out of love or intimacy, but from habit, boredom, or emotional escape, your shadow is involved. Not because sex is wrong, but because the need to release compulsively often masks something deeper, a refusal to feel, to sit still, to face what's underneath. The urge to escape yourself becomes disguised as a natural desire. But it's not desire, it's avoidance. Retention forces you to stop avoiding. It makes you sit in that discomfort, in that restlessness, in that rising fire. And in that fire, the shadow begins to speak. It tells you what you truly fear. It shows you where you feel inadequate, powerless, or alone. This is why most men quit. Not because the physical discipline is too hard, but because they can't bear what emerges when the distractions are stripped away. But this confrontation is necessary. You cannot master what you will not face. You cannot own your energy if it is still being hijacked by unseen parts of yourself. Retention becomes the mirror, a tool of reflection that shows you exactly where you are weak, reactive, and fragmented. But it also gives you the power to change. In holding your seed, you are holding back the automatic impulse to run. That refusal to run becomes strength. It teaches you to breathe through the storm, to feel the fire without being consumed by it. This is the beginning of self-mastery, the ability to remain conscious and calm in the presence of internal chaos. That stillness is not passive. It is the result of intense inner work, of choosing awareness over reaction, depth over comfort. The man who integrates his shadow no longer fears it. He sees his lust, his rage, his hunger, and does not flinch. He does not act them out blindly, but he does not deny them either. He brings them into consciousness and learns to channel them. He becomes dangerous, not because he is violent, but because he is whole. He has nothing to hide, and therefore nothing to be controlled by. This inner integration changes the way you walk through the world. You no longer chase validation or approval. You are no longer owned by guilt or shame. You become grounded, not in perfection, but in truth. The energy you once leaked in private is now stored in awareness, converted into presence. That presence becomes unshakable, because it is built on the real, not on illusion. Sexual energy is one of the most powerful expressions of the shadow. It carries deep primal force, the need to conquer, to merge, to dominate, to be seen. These instincts are not evil. They are ancient, and when refined, they become the core of masculine strength. But without consciousness, they become chaotic, acting out in secrecy, addiction, or collapse. Retention brings them into the light. It offers you a choice: suppress these drives and let them control you from the shadows, or confront them and transform them into disciplined power. This is not about being a pure or immoral. It's about being whole, about owning the totality of who you are, and no longer being split between the man you show to the world and the man you are when no one is watching. You begin to understand that your urges are not problems to be fixed, but energy to be focused. You stop fearing your darker impulses because you've learned to direct them. The part of you that once sought escape now seeks elevation. The part that once gave in now watches with clarity. The internal division starts to close, and you become one within yourself, undivided, unshaken, unfazed.